Hello. We are doing microblading with some pixel shading. We're using my 18U Ultra Crisp blade. So we're gonna start out with just a really open and airy pattern. Of course, always still following her natural brow. And we are already numbed. So we're gonna start out with a 1-2 stroke grouping. So 1 here. Then we're gonna do a second one right beside it. So I'm gonna make sure I get a little less on my blade. I really want you guys to be able to see this. And then 2. Then we're gonna do 1, 2, 3 grouping. So 1, and then stop. Actually, we're just gonna do 2 again. Okay. Then we'll do 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna add 1. Actually, no, I'm like way changing my mind. I am gonna add a third one in here. Okay. And we'll do 1. 2 again. So the main thing with these is you want to keep your groupings close together, and you want it to start and stop at different points. So for example here, 1, and then don't bring it all the way up, and then do your second starting about halfway up. And again, I'm leaving this really open and airy because we're going to fill it in with pixel strokes. I can't wait to show you. I'm going to add a third starting about halfway again. Okay, so that's our zone 1. This entire brow flows to the side. So our zone 2 and 3, I'm first, normally I would just kind of mark boop, boop, boop. Okay, just so marking our spine here. Okay, so, and then I usually start with whichever zone is smaller. These are about the same, so I'm just gonna start with the bottom. I'm gonna add one more finishing stroke here. Okay, there. Now we'll do our bottom. So I first start by one long elongated connecting to the center, so like this, and connect to the center and create some space, connect to the center. This gives some lift and just helps create those strokes to create the flow, and then we go back in and fill them in. Okay, so now we're going to do some Ys and groupings to fill these spaces. I'm going to go ahead and do a grouping of 2 here. So 1, and then right beside it, starting halfway down, 2. Same thing here. I'm going to create a Y right here. So see how it kind of forms a little Y? I'm going to do my Y stroke right here too. Oops, I need a little more ink. One more Y stroke right here. Okay, now we'll do our groupings. So 1, and then halfway through 2, 1, about halfway 2, 1, 2, 1, and 2. Gonna get one little finishing stroke on this tail. Okay, so there is our zone 1 and our zone 2 with the underneath. Okay, so for above here, we're first going to lay in our exterior strokes. So from where this comes, you almost want to continue on with a little gap. So leave a little gap, and then 1, gap, 2, gap, 3, and let's do our final stroke right here. Now we're going to fill in this space. So first I'm going to start through here, and we're going to do groupings of 1, 2s, and 3s. So here's 1, 2, 3. I got too much ink on that one. Sorry, I'm trying to work super cleanly, but it's hard. And some of these strokes you can elongate to fill the space. So this stroke right here, I'm just going to pull it a little bit longer. Okay. And then here, we're going to form a W. So we're going to do 1, 2, and elongate this center. And right here, same thing, a W. So 1, 2, and that kind of third W, the center is already there. So we're just down to this little spot right here. So we're just going to do 1 and 1 in the center, and then 1 little blender stroke right here. I'm seeing 1 little stroke that needs to be connected in the center right here from here to here. So here is our microblading pattern. There's definitely room 4 little blender strokes, but again, instead of doing blender strokes, we are going to utilize pixel dots, especially through this center, to really give it a soft ombre look in the center, really wispy and really open and textured, and then more filled in and precise through the exterior. So there is our step 1. We are going to apply some secondary numbing. And then let this sit as we move on to our other brow. Okay, and we're just going to do the same thing on this brow. So first stroke. Then about 1/3 to 1/2 of the way through, do our second stroke in our grouping. Create a little bit of space and do it again. Again, I'm keeping these really open and airy so that I have spaces to fill in with my pixel strokes. I'm gonna make this one 1/3. Okay. Again, space. 1. And 2. I'm gonna lower this one just a teeniest bit. Here we go. One. And 2. I'm gonna add 1/3. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same kind of dot, dot, dot through the midsection. I'm not actually cutting here, I'm just depositing a little bit of ink onto the actual hair, or, you know, on top of the skin, just as a guide. And again, just creating a good amount of space. It's starting with a lift and then curving the stroke to flowing sideways in the center. And this is just the beginning of our Ys. See my stroke boot camp for more on Ys and groupings and all these things I'm talking about. Okay. I'm gonna go back and Y. 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 Sorry. then we're just going to finish filling these spaces with a few groupings. So 1, and 2. One and 2. And this pattern is trying to create kind of an open airiness on the top and the bottom of the brow, but get a little bit more density in the center. We're just going to do one little blender stroke here. One and 2. Okay, so the bottom of this and the center is done. And this top, we're just going to start. So again, leave a little gap and then you just want a slight curve on these, not too much. You end up with that fishtail thing. So we're gonna do one curving stroke here. And then we're gonna start in, well, first I'll do a transition stroke, so 1 and then 2. So 1, and then a second grouping here, 2. Okay, but so through here we're gonna do our W's. So 1, 2, 3. I will do one little understroke in between here. Okay. And then W's here. So 1, 2, 2, and 3. Sorry, and this tail, just one little blender guy, and one finishing stroke on the end. There we go. Now we're just going to do our second pass with our microblading. So just really good stretch. And just gently depositing a tiny bit more pigment in. Think of it as just like a paintbrush and you're painting in a little bit more pigment into these strokes. You're not going any deeper. All you're doing is just depositing a tiny bit more pigment into them. But just really carefully, slowly work. And trace those exact same strokes. This is key in getting crispness and good saturation, which means good retention. Just make sure to keep getting a good stretch. She has such perfect skin from microblading. I honestly have been doing like primarily pixel blading on everybody, but her skin is just so perfect for microblading. I think the main key to having microblading be successful is just knowing when to utilize it and not just trying to do it on every single client, whether they're a good candidate or not. Okay, and could I have you turn just a little bit this way? Perfect. We're just gonna fill these top strokes. My initial strokes, I always dip almost every single stroke. Filling strokes, it's probably every 2 to 3. Okay. I see one little stroke I missed. And there is our finished second pass. I like to end microblading with an ink bath. So what I do is put in on a little bit of A&D. And I kind of scrub this in. And let this sit for a few minutes, and I feel like it helps really get the ink pushed into the skin. We're just gonna do the same thing. Just trace over these strokes. Again, super light pressure. Just putting in a tiny bit more pigment. And this is when you could add a stroke or two if needed, or a lot more if needed. But with my method of working a zone at a time, I usually get at least 90% of my strokes in on that first pass, which is really great for, I think it actually helps for flow. And just make sure to keep moving your body as you work around your client so that you're always pulling towards your stomach. This helps make sure that your blade angle is correct, which is vital in keeping your strokes crisp. Keeping correct blade angle. I tend to still work a zone at a time, but when you're doing second pass, you can totally do whatever you want as far as which strokes win. As long as they all get filled again, that's all that matters. And obviously you can see the ink sitting on top, so it's not like you're gonna miss one. If there's a stroke or two that looks really dark, especially if it looks a tiny bit ashy, you probably went too deep there. So absolutely do not fill in that stroke again. Let them be. If you're having that happen a lot, I heavily recommend really working on latex, and too deep is like the worst thing you can do for microblading. So make sure that you have a handle on your depth. Otherwise, you end up with a blurred, like, ashy mess once these are healed. Okie doke. That was easy schmeezy. So same thing, we're gonna do our ink bath with our A&D, and then we'll add in our pixel shading and strokes. Can't wait. Okay, so we're just gonna wipe off our ink mask. Again, this has A&D in it, so it might wipe away our outline. Of course it doesn't. Oh, this stuff is so hardcore. It's kind of amazing. Okie doke. So our microblading is finished. It is really light and airy, but that's what we want. And so now we're just going to add in some definition with Pixel. But first I am going to throw a little bit of secondary on there. Okay, so we're just going to wipe off our secondary, and I'm going to go ahead and peel off my brow lock, map lock. Sorry, keep calling it brow lock. Well, it's really brow lock, just latex free. Okay, so and I'm cool with having some of the miracle markers still on there since we're gonna do shading. Otherwise you can take secondary and or the map block actually, and you can scrub it off. But again, I'm cool with it being there since we're gonna go ahead and add shading first. Okay guys, so what we're gonna do is strategically add in some shading. This is with my Pixel shader, Shade Me. So I added 1 drop of thick shading solution. And what I'm gonna do is shade in between dot, 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 dot. Then I'm gonna do a space. Dot, 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 space, dot, 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 dot. So you have so much control over this shading, but you can actually add even more texture in and strategically place it not everywhere, but just places for more fullness. So that's what we're doing with this. I'm trying to keep it in between the strokes we created, like every other. I just smudged that, that's okay. Just right in between. Okay, and I'm just going to go like this, cover it with A&D, and I think this brown's going to be done. We'll do the same thing on this other side. And same thing on this side. So I'm just tapping in between these strokes. So here, here, down to the bottom. Then I'm creating space. I'm doing it in between these. We do one little tap here. Okay. Then creating space. I'm going in between this. In between here. This is just going to create a little more texture and a little more fullness. But normally with shading, you really lose your texture. And this, if it's anything, is going to help add to the texture. That's what I love about pixel shading. And if you wanted a lot of density with this shading, you could do two things. You could not dilute it, and B, you could, after we are done with this, number up and do a second pass with it. I just want to add a little bit, nothing crazy. And that's it. That's all we're going to do with this brow. So same thing, I'm just going to rub this on, and I'm going to include it over the outline because I'm trying to kind of help pull some of that miracle marker. And then A&D, and we're going to let both brows sit for 5 minutes, and then we're going to wipe it off, and then we'll come back, and next thing you'll see is her reveal.